didn't have many games. There were only a few games. The weather's really beating us up a little bit here, but we did play a few games. So let's get started and go right into our game changer top performers. And I'm just going to bring up this list, and I'll give you a second to check it out. Like I said, there were only a few players, a lot of pitchers, a lot of good pitching performances these past few games. Okay, so the next part of this is our teams to watch, and this list really hasn't changed much the past few weeks. It did a little bit in the beginning, but these past few weeks it kind of settled in, and it's pretty good now, pretty stable. But the Riverside, of course, and what I'm going to do is, since I don't have a top plays section, what we're going to do is going to go over the playoff picture. So we're going to kind of get a look of everyone's playoffs and just get an idea of what teams need to do and who's already clinched a spot and all that good stuff. So we'll get into that here in a second. But Riverside is our top team, as they've been for a while now. They are fighting for that second seed out of their section, and we'll get into that later. Central Valley is holding strong in the second spot, and they have an opportunity to make CB history with being the first softball team to win their section. So they have a big game coming up this week. Hopewell season is done. The regular season is completed. They did finish at 7-3, and are kind of waiting on the results of the CB Wood City game. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And then Southside, they could tie for second place in their division with a win, and Beaver needs to defeat Ambridge, and they will clinch that fourth seed out of their section. The only other team not on this list that will also make the playoffs is Western Beaver. So there'll be the 6 teams that are that should get into the playoffs, and we'll get to see what they do in the playoffs. Now, as far as this network goes, I'm not allowed to stream playoff games, so I can only do the section games and the non-section games, like scrimmage games or wherever. So I could potentially do some more games when we're getting ready for the playoffs. Those are typically good games between playoff teams, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm not able to stream playoff games, at least this year. If we do want to, then we have to buy the rights from the Trib, which is only like a couple $100. It's not a lot of money, but if there is a game that we do want to stream, of course, reach out to me, and then I'll get the wheels in motion as far as getting that access or that privilege to stream the games. All right, so let's get into the playoff picture. So the first one up is Section 3, 5A. And what we have here is West A. Of course, they're having a great season. They clinched. Southside has also clinched, and Moon has clinched. Now, the last spot is between Mars and Western Beaver, and Western has to play South A at Newcastle, and Mars has to play West A. So West A is probably going to beat Mars, and I would think that Western has a chance to beat South Fayette, but they will definitely beat Newcastle. So they'll end up being tied with Mars, and due to the tiebreaker, which is head-to-head, Western Beaver beat Mars twice, so Western Beaver will be the team into the playoffs, and that's how I think this section's going to end up. Now let's move into Section 3, Class 4A. Of course, Chartiers Valley and Montour, they're definitely in. They both have great teams. Hampton is going to be in as well, and that final spot is going to be up to Beaver. So if Beaver defeats Ambridge, then they'll clinch that fourth spot. Blackhawks has to beat Montour, Ambridge, and North Catholic to tie for fourth. So I'm thinking most likely they're not going to beat Montour. So now, if they were to beat Montour, there would be a tie for fourth, which means both teams will be into the playoffs because they split in the regular season. So But Blackhawk, that's a lot to ask to beat Montour, but they play the games for a reason, so let's see what they can do. But if I'm a betting man, Beaver's going to be that fourth team into the playoffs. Now this is the section that's interesting. So this is section 2-3A, and what we have is a potential for a four-way tie for first. So the game that, so of course these four teams are going to make the playoffs, but the game to watch is the Central Valley versus Elwood City game, which is on Tuesday, and I'm going to have that on the broadcast for BCSN. But it's going to be an interesting game just because of if Central Valley would happen to lose that game, it creates that four-way tie, and it's going to be a four-way tie for first, so everyone's going to share that section title. However, as far as the playoffs go, the seeds, it'll be up to the WPIAL on how they determine that. So I'm sure these teams don't want to put themselves in that situation, specifically Central Valley, because they have control. If they can win that game against Elwood, they get that number one seed out of their section, and it gives them a good draw in the playoff bracket. If not, they could potentially be the 4 seed. Who knows? So, but that game's going to be on the network. It should be a fun one to watch. All right, so the next section is section 1-2A. Of course, Neshannock is a powerhouse. They're going to most likely finish on top. And then Laurel and Riverside are battling it out for the second spot, and then Shenango's going to get in that fourth spot. Now, Riverside could move into the second spot if they defeat Neshannock and Laurel. Now, it's a lot to ask, but it would be possible. Laurel has to play Shenango and Riverside, so if Riverside can somehow beat Laurel and beat Neshannock, then they'll have the 2 losses and be in second place. If Laurel beats Riverside, or if Riverside loses to Neshannock, then they'll have the 3 losses, which will keep them in third spot. So it's really up to Riverside on what happens here. Then, of course, the last section is section 1A. You have Union and Northgate, who are in the playoffs. Southside's going to make the playoffs, and Carlington will be in there as well. And then the Whippeal, most likely Southside's going to win that last game that they play. I forget who they play, but they should win. But that gives them a tie with Northgate and Southside, and they both split their series. So most likely they'll share second place, which how they seed them in the brackets. I don't know if they flip coins or what they do, but they'll have to figure that one out. So that's the playoff picture. So this week is going to be a quick week. We have to get these games in by Wednesday, and then they'll have the drawing. I think they do that over the weekend, maybe on Saturday. I forget exactly when they do it, but I'll do a show. So our next weekly recap will be, of course, I'll have the highlights of the Central Valley Elwood City game, and then we'll talk about the seeds, and hopefully we have the bracket that we can talk about. So maybe we'll have some words on that and figure that stuff out. So until then, thanks for watching.